Mate, it's been, what has it been, 4 weeks since you finished a 960 kilometer challenge?
Yeah, 4 weeks ago on Monday, I believe. So, yeah, starting to feel somewhat normal again. You often forget when you interact with people how you've treated them because we're caught up in our own little world, our own little space. So, for me, it's a case of remembering that whenever you meet someone, it's an opportunity to leave a great impression, it's an opportunity to make them feel good about themselves. The impact that can have on other people is incredible. Running an ultra with people is such a beautiful way to get to know them. People open up about all sorts of things in their life.
So what's the one piece of advice for someone looking to do something abnormal in their lives?
Oh, great question. One piece of advice, someone's looking to do something abnormal in their lives.
Welcome to Abnormal. This is the podcast for normal people who want to do abnormal things. My guest today is a fellow Englishman who has been absolutely killing it in the social media game, known for his relatable, honest content, undertaking some ridiculous running challenges, but doing it all for a very good cause and with a smile on his face. Jonny Davies, welcome to Abnormal.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Mate, it's been, 4 weeks since you finished a 960 kilometer challenge?
Yeah, 4 weeks ago on Monday, I believe. So, yeah, starting to feel somewhat normal again, as normal as you can after such a distance.
Well, that was my question. How is the body feeling?
During the challenge, terrible. Immediately after the challenge, even worse. And then after 10 days of sort of laying horizontal and devouring about 5,000 calories a day, I started to feel better, and thankfully no major injuries coming off the back of it, which is always a plus for these things. I mean, during these things, you're pushing your body to the absolute limit. You feel like things are getting worse as these challenges progress. It's a very... it's not the nicest place to be in when you know you're banged up and you still have to keep going further and you know it's going to get worse. But it's a great feeling coming out the back of it, knowing that the body held up the way it did, and that's just a testament to consistent, good training, good programming, and effective execution of it all.
Yes, mate. I mean, I've been following all the content, and especially the stuff after when you're getting the MRIs, you're seeing your physio. It looked like there was a stage there where you were pretty fearful that there was something genuinely wrong.
Yeah, so we got some pretty severe tenosynovitis. If you don't know what that is absolutely fine. I didn't until I got it. It's basically the membrane around the tendons. You can get it in your hands, your feet, your legs, and I got it on my tibs. And ultimately, it's the sheath or the membrane that runs around your tendon getting inflamed, and that just causes a massive amount of inflammation into the ankle, into the feet. So by the end of day 2, about 200 kilometers in, I noticed that my right ankle had swollen to the point that it could no longer fit in the shoe I was wearing. And when you've still got over 700 kilometers to go in the next 9 days, it's quite a worrying feeling to be contending with an issue like that. The good thing about it is tenosynovitis you're not actually injured. It's a type of flare up. It can get worse and it can get infected, and that can cause some serious issues, but you can keep going. It ultimately means that you lose the ability to move your foot up and down or your toes. So ultimately, it's like you've got a dead foot. So with the correct amount of tape, you as an ex-rugby man, I'm sure you've been taped up many a time. The correct amount of tape and willpower, you just have to learn to run without the use of your ankle or calf or anything really. You just lose. There's no ability to kick off or control it. So yeah, you ultimately have a bit of a wooden ankle for the rest of the time you're moving.
Well, that sounds horrific to get that info on day 2 of an 11, pretty much 12-day challenge. What's your? You must have a team behind the scenes, right, for a challenge like this. Can you talk us through what that sort of makeup is?
The team is more important than anything else. I mean, as much as I can prep myself and get myself physically ready, there's so many things I can't do during these sort of challenges. Having a physio who knows yourself, knows your ability to push, is important. Then obviously my coaches, Tommy Trees, my run coach, who's been supporting me over the years, knows how stubborn I am, knows how much I want to keep pushing things forward and keep entering back into that realm. And then also, really good friends who I know are going to be there for support, but also to take care of me and look out for me in that sense there. And not to say that the guys aren't friends, we're all very good friends as a result of doing these challenges. But having people who are absolute experts in their fields, but also people you get on with, because whereas things get dark, you need to almost tap into dark senses of humor that we all have to be able to sort of like keep cracking forward. And just from a morale perspective, having the right people in is so important, and that everyone also knew each other pre-challenge. which is so important because again, you want everyone to be very comfortable. You're living in close proximity. You know, the five of us are living in a motorhome for the 12 days. So, you know, you do have to get pretty familiar with everyone you're with, and that's a cohesiveness. Same with like a sports team, rugby team. You work best when everyone gets on. You're cohesive. You know, you can have that banter between each other. But at the end of the day, you know, everyone's there to get the job done, and we're putting the running, the challenge above everything else, above everyone's comfort, lack of sleep, whatever it is. It's hey, we've got to get this done. So that was great. That was honestly, I couldn't wish for a better team, a better group of guys to help me out with this.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, what we're talking about is your challenge, obviously, Run the Capitals. And that was a 11-day, 960 kilometer, 5 cities running, ultra running challenge. Is that how you best to describe it?
Best to describe it, yeah. So the 5 capital cities of the United Kingdom and Ireland, starting in Edinburgh, running to Belfast, then to Dublin, across to North Wales, and all the way whole length of Wales, and then to Cardiff to London. So 960 kilometres of running, 2 ferry crossings. So we got across from Scotland to Northern Ireland, and then Dublin to Holyhead. And that's it. And I set myself the goal of doing it over 11 days. However, because we had to have medical intervention on the morning of day 3, we lost a good chunk of day 3 to getting treatment and getting my ankle scanned. Which was a very make or break. Because we had to work out what was going on here. It's twice the size. We need to work out what it was. Had I torn something in my foot? What was the issue here? And then when we found out it was tenosynovitis, incredibly painful, incredibly uncomfortable, but not something that's going to be a serious issue, and also not something that after the challenge I was going to be left with a permanent injury. Once we knew that, it was right. Let's get the shoes on. Let's get out the door. Let's get moving. But unfortunately, to get to that point, we knew that we lost half a day, which ultimately meant we didn't finish on the end of the 11th day. Just meant we just finished halfway through the next day, which is absolutely fine. So I wanted to do it with the goal of setting. No one had done it before, so there was no fastest known time I was going for. Anything I did it in was the fastest known time, but I just wanted to set a standard for myself to do this at double marathon distance each day. And I think that was, for me, really important to have something that's going to scare me as the main priority. You know, going into training for this, I didn't want it to be, you know, a marathon a day or 50K a day, which are fantastic things to go for. I wanted it to test me in every possible way, you know, and push my body to the limit, push my mental capacity to the limit. And also the beauty of that is you really discover yourself when you're so up against it and everything, you're fighting against everything else. And you got to search within to find out what's going to come out on the other side. And so there is massive elements of self-discovery with these sorts of challenges. And yeah, so that's why I don't want it to be easy. It was, the purpose of it was supposed to be uncomfortable, it was supposed to be difficult, and it was supposed to be a case where I didn't know the outcome. And getting through it with everything that happened and with the distance we did each day, for me, is the thing I'm happiest about, is that, you know, not taking the easier option in a sense of let's drop the distances down, even when things start going wrong, is like, oh, it just means we're going to be out running for longer now. Okay, we're out each day for longer. What time do we finish? Midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Cool, just go get it done. And that for me was special.
Mate, yeah. I mean, you know what they say: if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And you've hit the nail on the head there. Double marathon distance needs to scare you. I'm at the stage at the moment in my training where anything over 10K scares me, and it's not my most proud moment at the moment, but it is what it is. We all go through these lulls. Mate, you mentioned there about all the dark moments there are in a challenge like this. And I know you've done challenges before, which we will touch on as well. What goes through your mind in moments like that, on a challenge like this when you're that tired?
Weirdly enough, not a lot actually goes through your mind. When you're that tired, and the beauty of challenges like this, where you're pushing yourself at exhaustion for so many days, is the usual barriers you have up in day-to-day life, where the things you often avoid thinking about, you've got ultimately no distractions. So you end up having these very deep processing thoughts of things that have happened in your life that day to day you can distract yourself from. And I find that's the real beauty of these events, is you know, learning about which version of you shows up when you're at your most tired, when you're at your most fatigued, where do you go to? Who comes out of that area? And it's so interesting to see which version of you will show up, who's going to show up. And before this challenge, a lot of the prep I was doing was, training was so fatiguing and tiring, and it was designed to be like that, to mimic how I was going to feel. Obviously, not to the extent, but to be, we do 140K training weeks and then bang, right into another one. Or there'll be a case of like, hey, let's do a long run on like a couple hours of sleep. And who shows up then? Who's coming up to those, 30, 40K runs when you haven't really slept? You've done another one of those a few hours before, and you don't give yourself the option to. There's no option other than to go and do it. What are you thinking? What's going on then? And throughout training, I was always like, I just find a way to keep myself smiling, and knowing that what, I can still keep doing this. It's uncomfortable, but it's not impossible. And I think it's ultimately just being aware of what hurts, being aware of what's sore, and almost still say, stacking up things that are going wrong, and then keep going. But I'm still going to do it. That is such an overwhelming thing. And actually, when you start making progress with the distances each day, even though you've got this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, you can't hold food down, you've had a couple of hours of sleep, your feet are sore, my feet swell to 3 shoe sizes up than they normally are. And it's like, cool, but we're still going to do it. And actually, weirdly enough, you get a real kick out of that. And I found it funny. Like that's the thing. I didn't find it fun by any means, but I did find the situation I was in funny.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a real life experiment, because I didn't know exactly who's going to come out there. I didn't know where my mind was going to go to during these challenges. You can prepare as much as possible, but actually when the reality hits you of like, your foot's not working, things are swollen up, you're, in immense amount of discomfort, but there's also a case of, well, you said you're going to do it, so let's get on with it. It's really funny how you're able to just keep going. And I find it because I didn't come from a running background. I didn't come from an endurance background at all. I've come from a strength and rugby background. Rugby game's over after 80 minutes. There's
bloody lovely, done.
Job done, park it, get in the pub. Whereas with this, it doesn't end. You finish, you might hit the distance today, 80, 90K, and guess what? You're back out again tomorrow. So it's one of those. It doesn't end until the whole thing finishes. So the thing about these things is, even on those days where I'm really struggling, I know that if I don't get my distance today, all I'm doing is punishing tomorrow me. Tomorrow me is probably going to feel worse than today me. So let's do a favor to ourselves. And this is where these things translate across to so many other areas of life. Comes to business, comes to work, comes to relationships. Is sometimes you don't feel like doing the thing. That's fine. We all don't feel like doing the thing most of the time. But if you don't do the thing now, it's going to now accumulate into tomorrow. It's going to cause a knock-on effect. And it's going to affect the other things you're supposed to do tomorrow and the next thing you know, you're behind on everything. And that in itself causes, I think, more stress personally, more anxiety. Whereas if you just say, listen, I know I don't feel great doing this, and I'm not massively excited about doing it now, but let's just get the habit of just finishing this day and get this thing sorted, and doing it, trying to eke out a nice smile on your face, but doing it despite the fact you don't really want to do it. There's so much power in that, because all of a sudden the next day you go, hang on a minute, you're so thankful. The next day I'd wake up the next day being like, I'm so happy I didn't pull 20K short of yesterday's distance, because then I'd have to run an extra 20 today and I feel worse today. And actually you get a lot out of that. Same with work stuff, obviously back to real life now, where I am, multiple different projects I'm involved with. I'm just getting it done, because I know if I can get 90 kilometers a day, 80 kilometers a day done on days I don't feel like it, I can reply to the emails I need to reply to. I can get back to what I need to get back to.
Well, sometimes that's harder, mate. Sometimes that's harder. An email can be harder than 90Ks.
And it's just a case of, stop making how you feel an excuse for not doing it. That's not to say your feelings don't matter. It's just to say that there's always an excuse not to do something. There's always a reason to say to yourself, "Well, I've done so much today. It's good enough. It's good enough." And it comes down to holding yourself to a standard that you accept and a standard that you want to be known for. And it's a case of, how you do anything is how you do everything. And the standard you hold yourself to in one part of life will translate to other parts of life. And it just comes down to, what are the standards that you hold that you want other people around you to have, and maybe the standards that you want to put onto other people or encourage other people to have, because having good standards for yourself allows you to be able to do some incredible things in this world.
Mate, just from that one conversation, it's no surprise that you're doing so many amazing things right now. It's so, your message is so legit, and as you said, it's not just about running. It's not just about one ultra run challenge. My question to you is I've followed your content for quite a long time, and I really, really enjoy it. It's actually been one of my inspirations for starting my own content. you're such a positive guy, and your content is always has such a positive message, which is amazing, and I think it's why so many people really appreciate your content. Has it always been like that? Have you always been that positive guy?
I'd say so, to be fair. I mean, not to say I haven't had big challenges in my life and things that have made me incredibly sad or whatnot. I think that's just how I like to interact with the world. You know, there's things I live by are, you know, the world's not coming at you, it's coming from you, and you know, your attitude and how you feel most days is based upon how you interact with other people. The axe forgets, but the tree doesn't. You know, how you treat, you know, always remember, people never forget how you treat them, and that's for good and bad. If you're, I remember everyone in my life who's been mean to me or horrible to me, and it just sticks with you.
Yeah.
I also remember people who've been really nice to me and really sweet and kind to me, and that sticks with you as well. You often forget when you interact with people how you've treated them because we're caught up in our own little world, our own little space. So for me, it's a case of remembering that whenever you meet someone, it's an opportunity to leave a great impression. It's an opportunity to make them feel good about themselves. And if you have the chance to do that, you should do that, because the impact that can have on other people is incredible. I look at the people in my life who've had such an impact on me, who have treated me with such respect or given me such belief in myself, that the impact of that is so far reaching. And I really want to be able to pass that forward to the people. And when I speak to people, interact with people, I want to be able to make sure they leave that conversation feeling like, you know what, whatever fears and doubts they have, which we all do have, you know, are not as great as our potential. And so that's a big one for me, because you know what, it's, as I say, you know, people don't forget how you make them feel. And I just, that's always stuck with me. And I think you got to, if you have the opportunity to have impact on other people for good, by all means.
I love it, and you are doing a lot of that, mate, with all your content, YouTube, Insta, whatever it is. We don't get TikTok over here in Hong Kong, sadly, so
Oh no,
can't follow you there.
that's funny enough. There, we'll invest in a good VPN for you.
Yeah, there you go. So with all these challenges, as I said, we've mentioned Run the Capitals, and I know we've spoken about it a bit, but it was a huge challenge, and you've got amazing content online. I would urge everyone to go and watch it, because you as I said, you learn a lot about you from watching it, but you'll probably think deep about yourself just by watching someone else go through that kind of pain. You've also, before Run the Capitals, you did Run the Line, which was running the the length of the London Underground, which was how many?
From that.
Okay.
Whenever I mention it, people go, "Oh, you ran on the tracks." Like, no, they don't let you roll on the tracks.
I just had to explain to my French wife that you didn't go through the tunnels in London.
Often I think it's a given, then I realise that's not a given at all. No, so 572 kilometres over 11 days, 11 tube lines of the London Underground network, and I ran it above ground, station to station, 272 stations. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I'll admit that one. There was a few tough moments, but that was overall a very fun experience because of the disparity of distances. Every tube line is different. They range from 92 kilometers to a 3 kilometer line. Right, there's only one that's 3 kilometers, and the second and shortest is about 30. So it's between most days is bouncing from like 70 to 90 kilometers, and then it's like a 30-kilometer day, and then back and forth. But what that did do was every other day that was shorter gave me half a day to have treatment, have time off feet, recover. You know, the same way with, you know, when you're doing a challenge as a marathon a day, the marathon's 4 to 6 hours realistically, if you're doing them day to day. You've then got the rest of the day off your feet, recovering, time to eat, time to have treatment, time to this, time to that, and then time to down-regulate your body so you can have a good night's sleep. When you're running for most of the awake day, from sunrise to sunset, you don't have the time in the day to do that. You don't have the time to recover from that. So for me, that's kind of where the big differences and challenges were. I mean, ultimately, it's the same period of time, and it was an extra 400 kilometers over the same period. And I was, yeah, I laugh at it now, but obviously, I didn't actually put two and two together. I remember, like, oh, I did the tube one really well. I can do this really well. And yeah, it's that's the thing. It's like you know, if you give yourself a bit of time to recover, patch up and go again, that's one thing. But when it's I'm finishing running and it's like I've got a couple hours of sleep and try and get some food in me, and then we go again. And that was the real thing that you're scared, especially when your adrenal systems is so hyped up. There were nights I didn't really sleep where I just lay there sweating, and next thing you know, the sun's coming up, and I'm like, I got to now step out of this and do the whole thing again. and you just there's no other option. You don't give yourself the option to think, you know what, maybe I'll just stay in here. The second that alarm goes, like, right, coffee, the lads are all up. It's like looking at like a documentary, the HMS Victory. You just see like the second that whistle goes, like, right, all hands on deck, everyone's up, coffee's on, breakfast being made. I'm sort of like rolling myself out of this bunk, and that's it. 45 minutes, we're going to be on the road running, and you don't give yourself the opportunity to eke into that. But back to your previous point, it's very different on the London Underground run because I was staying at home. I'd finish each day, I get to go back to my house, I get to go back to my home. I've got ability to do laundry, I can order off Deliveroo, I can, kind of do what I want. One of the evenings I just played Xbox with my mates, and it wasn't like it was a challenge with that challenge mentality, but I also had a dose of my own life and reality. I wasn't taken away from it. I had the comforts of my own bed, the comforts of my own home and kitchen, my housemates, who are two of my closest friends, with me at home. It was quite like, they come back from work, like, how's your day? I was like, yeah, I ran the district line. How's yours? Like, yeah. I was very much still living in that sense there. Whereas with these challenges where you're living in the RV, you're there's days, you don't look at your phone because you're just trying to get through what's happening, and nothing else is really going on. Especially when you're going through, distant places I've never been to before. I've never been to Northern Ireland before. I'd never been to most of the places in Wales I was running through before. And you really are out there in the middle of nowhere, just trying to make a dent in what you've got to do.
And was it it seemed like I say natural progression, but you've gone from 570k to 960k. I wouldn't say that's a natural progression, but I'd imagine in terms of the structure of the race or the challenge, it's gone from you've got your home comforts, your home city. That's a really, I say, dip your toe in the water. It's a pretty big ocean you've dipped your toe into there. 570k is a bloody good challenge. But then the next one is right. Let's put this thing on. Let's really test the minerals here. And you had a huge training block before. You were going on training camps, right, up to Scotland to test out all the different things. You had a crew in place. It was like, okay, this has changed from being, it's really tough, but as you said in your way, it's kind of manageable if you're managing like just over an ultra a day or sometimes less than a marathon a day versus I've got to average a double marathon a day here. What goes through your mind when you're thinking of coming up with these challenges?
Does it scare me? And that's the big part of it, because if it doesn't scare you enough to take the training as seriously as you need to take it, it doesn't train you in a sense of everything else in my life. And look, I'm not married, I don't have kids, so I don't have to worry about that too much. It'd be very different if I did have kids, because all of a sudden I'm a very absent father. Thankfully I don't. So it's in a case of, I love doing this, and there's a certain degree of selfishness of self-discovery of doing these things. And while I can do these things, I'm going to do these things. But it's a case of going, I need to give this everything. I need to dedicate myself absolutely to this one thing. Every decision I make from now to the challenge is based on, will this help me run? Will this help me with this? Will this help me with this? I had 4 months where every single night I got over 9 hours of sleep because I got everything so structured and ordered. I use an eight sleep device, which is a special mattress topper that regulates the temperature in bed.
Very interesting.
Phenomenal. The data every time, it's getting at least 2 hours of deep sleep, an hour and a half of REM every single night, and that taught me so much about how to sleep properly, how to structure my day so I can sleep effectively in this. All these things and elements that came into it. That again, I often say that these challenges, the real discovery is the 6 months of prep beforehand of training, what it's going to make of you. What it made of me is someone who's, I always think I'm a pretty disciplined person with a lot of stuff. It made me that extra bit more disciplined. I learned that I can be in control of my nutrition, fully and comprehensively, how I'm sleeping. That was always an issue for me in the past, is not having good control of my sleep, because I would spend my evenings scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, and it's safe going, no, you've got this thing that if you don't take this seriously and you don't do this. So actually all of a sudden I go, yeah, you're right, I don't need to do that. I just start to turn my phone off at 10 o'clock and leave it in the other room. I don't need it. Like, you really start to hone in these things, and okay, what do you want your thoughts to be before you go to bed? Okay, well, I'm going to read these books. I'm going to spend some time doing this. That's what I want to do the last hour of my day, is honing in these thoughts here. And all of a sudden you pick up new skills and habits by just being consistently disciplined with it. Now, I'm not saying you got to live your life this way, because I got bored after a while, but 6 months is enough time. And it gave me the edge that I could go into this challenge nervous, yes, scared, yes, but also quietly confident that no matter what happened, I was finishing this under any circumstance. So at no point was I doing the challenge thinking like, oh, bit banged up, bit sorry for myself. I didn't come into it at all. There's no time I was, thinking, oh, poor me. It was like, no, you chose to be here, mate. Like, good job. You're here. You're in the game now. Let's go. That all came from that 6 months of prep and what I learned about myself and the things I picked up. So for me, the most beautiful thing around that challenge was doing it was obviously incredible. Who I had to become in order to do it is the most valuable thing. This is what I talk a lot about when people want to train for a marathon. It's like, you don't train for a marathon to say you've run a certain time or to get a medal. They give them out to everyone. Doesn't matter if you come first or last, you get the same medal at a marathon. So what are you running it for? You're running it because of who it's going to make you become going through that process of training. The marathon, the race itself is the last run of that period of your life. It's all the other runs building up to that where you're picking up habits like discipline, consistency, you're seeing progression, you're learning more about nutrition, you're learning more about taking care of yourself, you're maybe saying no to bad habits and saying yes to better habits, and you're just picking up a new way of living, a new way of life. And I've always found that some of the best people I've met in my life is when I'm in that space mentally where I'm working towards something and I can see that in other people. Because what you often do is when you're in a stage of life where you're just relaxing, having fun, you hang out with more people who are just relaxing, having fun, If you're trying to get after it, you end up being drawn to other people who are doing that as well. I think that's a really special thing because you often think of people training for marathon, doing all this stuff alone. Actually, what happens is you generally tend to connect to more people you come across in life who are in the same sort of place you are. And that's a really wonderful thing to do because you're then encouraging other people to do that. The people you meet along the way, the friendships we made along the way sort of thing. But it's really important because when you finish that marathon, you didn't do it for a time because a lot of time people don't get the time they desired. And that's absolutely fine. But it's all those months you put into it mean something because it's saying to the world, this is the person that I am. And you've now got the evidence to prove it because you spent 3 months of your life working hard towards something, or in my case, 6 months of my life working towards something. And the thing I'm most proud of is the training block. The challenge, I knew I was going to do it, hell or high water, no matter what, I'd crawl to the finish line. But the 6 months of training is like, can you do this for 6 months? Can you say no to other things happening in your life? Can you be really that focused to it? Every morning waking up, first thing across my mind, 960K, 11 days. Let's go. And that's just built in no matter what. And I think that's the best part of it is obviously I'm in a place now where I'm waking up and I'm not thinking about 960K anymore. And it's a really nice feeling that I've gone, yeah, I said I was going to do it and I've gone out and done it. And that's that.
There's not many better feelings in the world than, as you said, when you say you're going to do something and you go out and do it. And I completely agree that the last thing you do, so the 960K you've done is, as you said, that's the final run, that's the final hurdle, that's supposedly the bit that you get to enjoy. There's something different about when you really commit to something, commit to a challenge, and you put everything in, and it gives you that confidence going into that challenge. You're like, okay, I know this is fucking hard, but I've done this. I've done 6 months of dieting, of sleeping well, of sacrificing alcohol, of building good habits, of being disciplined. Like I've got all these pennies in the bank that when I do have to run a double marathon off of 10 minutes sleep, I'm backing myself to do this. I'm backing this horse. Yeah. And there's something so empowering but rare about that feeling because it's a really rare feeling that even you might have in your life, but anyone might have in their lives because I do believe that it's a really rare that you go into something with no stone left unturned.
Yeah.
Like there's like a lot of the time you've prepared for something, but there's probably things that you've missed along the way. But from the sounds of it and from following your journey, that 6 month block that you did, and I mean, I saw the progress, like, holy shit, you're rigged for one. Like you can't fake that. You can't fake that because I've done a diet before and I've done like a shred for a high rocks competition. Hardest thing I've ever had to do, or one of, like dieting, fully dieting when you're trying to train at that level is hard. And then the results at the end of it are just, they speak for themselves. But you can't get to that stage without the daily compounded discipline.
100%. And that's the thing, right? And you've got to, people talk about enjoying the process. You don't necessarily have to enjoy the process. You just have to understand you're getting something out of it. You're benefiting from this in ways that will not pay dividends until you see it in retrospect, until you look back and go, I'm so glad I did that. Now, don't be wrong, part of me was thinking, like, do I really want to be spending my days doing this? You doubt yourself sometimes when in these long runs, you're tired. I remember waking up. There was a time on a Saturday I woke up, supposed to run 30K. I just slept for 10 hours and I woke up, made 2 cups of coffee, had breakfast, and fell asleep for 5 more hours. And then I got up and did my 30K. And it was like, I remember thinking to myself, like, this is a Saturday. Like, this is when my buddies are out doing stuff. I'm not seeing friends. It's summer. Everyone's had a good time. And it was like, yeah, but you'll look back and be really happy you did this when you didn't want to do this. And then I remember on the challenge when things were going wrong, I was thought, I'm really happy. I'm really happy I put so much effort work in. It also has so much meaning behind it. The more you put into something, the more, and there's an element of sunk cost fallacy with that. But there's also a case of, I'm not quitting. Like, if I didn't train hard for this and things went wrong, I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. I've already invested so much time, effort, and energy. I'm not quitting now. There's no way I'm quitting just because, I'm a bit sore, a bit banged up and tired. Like, okay, well, just crack on and maybe try and get some more sleep tonight, or you know what, just find a way through it. And I think that's where prep comes in so much, and the effort and how much you sacrifice to get to where it needs to be means so much. Especially because I didn't come from a running background. It's not just been this training block, it's been every training block's been hard. From when I started trying to run in 2019, that first 5K, that was so hard. It's all hard.
Talk to us about that. Like, how did you actually get into running?
I got into cycling, weirdly enough. I was playing rugby. I had a bit of a knee injury and had to have surgery on my right knee for fixing a fracture. I couldn't run, not that I ran, but like I couldn't run on the rugby pitch either. And so I was like, got into cycling, and I didn't, once I obviously liked it, there's something weird about guys wearing Lycra and chatting about bikes and brakes and discs and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought it was a bit weird. And I didn't enjoy the cycling aspect. I think I just didn't enjoy cyclists. So apologies to anyone who is cyclists out there listening. It's not a dig at you, it's just a dig in general. And I didn't mind it. I like the fact that I could then go, oh, wow, I can do this for a couple of hours. As long as you put fuel in, as long as you do this. It's actually quite nice to be able to go for a few hours and do this and this. And I was living in the time in Madrid, and beautiful for cycling there, great weather. And the guy who got me to cycling, he was the chairman of my rugby club. He did a lot of triathlons, and he was like, "Oh, I cycle and also I run later in the day." I was like, "What?" I found it so strange, and I started going out for these little 3-5Ks, and I could never sustain. Whatever I was trying to do, I couldn't sustain anything. And it took me a good few months to be able to go and run a 5K where I didn't stop. And I obviously had to slow down. You got to start regulating your pace. And coming from a sporting background, often you're told to run as hard as you can every time you run because you're trying to beat someone. And obviously, when you're doing endurance, it's not that at all. It's understanding your zones. It's understanding consistency. It's you get into that habit. And it wasn't until like start of 2020. I was away just before COVID in Canada with work, and I was very jet lagged and hungover. I was at a real weird point where I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do work-wise, career-wise, and I just went out for a run. Never having run more than 5K, and doing it hungover and jet lagged was an even worse combination. And also in winter in Canada, I had a pair of rugby shorts and a t-shirt, and I just went out. And it hurt a lot, and I didn't particularly enjoy it, but I got a lot of mental clarity from it. And I just thought, okay, if I can I like the fact that this will not come easy to me at all. I like the fact that I had to push to get this. I like the fact that there's resistance to, everyone's talking about how great running is, and I'm there like dying on this run being like, what are you talking about? But I felt good afterwards. There's a sense of achievement afterwards, which I guess obviously translates to things like self-esteem, self-confidence. You said, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. You've done this thing. It was hard, but you overcame it. Wow, okay, what else can I do? And that's, I think, what I was seeing so many people in running these days. It's incredible to see so many people doing this and progressing. And I love seeing the most is seeing people progress who are starting out in the sport, or who maybe only run 5Ks or 10Ks, then they go into half marathons, and then they go to run marathons, and they're trying to beat their marathon time. There's something so beautiful about seeing people enjoy this process of self-development. Even if the process is uncomfortable, most of the time the process of developing yourself is uncomfortable, and yet still doing it anyway, and then building communities around it, or people finding connections around it. I think that's something really special within that, and I think that's why we're seeing so many people now getting into endurance sports who didn't grow up doing endurance sports. Like, the only people I knew who ran when I became an adult were people who ran cross country. And I just thought there were people who couldn't play rugby because they were too small. So they chose to go cross country. Secretly, I was jealous of the fact they could run for, a bit further than I could and a lot faster. But, I didn't admit that at the time.
That's hilarious. I think we all thought that about our friends at school who are cross-country runners maybe, but okay, so a lot of people, again, the podcast is abnormal, right? And it's meant to normal people wanting to do abnormal things. So a lot of people will look at you right now and they'd see, say, if I were to follow you today and I'd look at your Instagram, I go on your YouTube, I would see someone who is this fucking ripped up ultra runner, sponsored athlete, full-time content creator, and I'd be like, wow, okay, that's pretty insane, like fucking cool. But maybe not attainable for me. You know, he's obviously pro, he's been doing it for ages. How long has it taken you to get to where you are now?
Great question. In what regards to the running, the content,
Let's go running first. I know you said you started really 2020 was when you said you were going through those.
I ran my first marathon in 2021. I then ran my first ultra in 2021, and then that was like none of this was events. I just went out and did them. And then 22 was my first 100K, another marathon, lots of 50Ks. And then last year, 23 was 80K mountain races, more marathons, more half marathons, just spontaneous 50Ks around London, and then the London Underground. It's just one of those things that I didn't really plan what my structure was. If someone goes to me, oh, there's this really cool race I'm doing, or oh, I'm thinking about doing this, or I just go, I've got a few months here where I haven't got anything lined up. What's something I haven't done yet? What's something that I can now go and say, I'm now the person that trains these kind of races and then goes and does it. Okay, cool. Let's go find one. Let's go do that. Weirdly enough, my most enjoyable and one most difficult but enjoyable races I did in upstate New York. People I met through TikTok running, friends of mine, a guy called Tyler Swartz, based in New York. He started the Endorphins Run Club. Before he'd started all that, we just knew each other through TikTok, and he said, hey, a bunch of us are trained to run this 50 miler or 80K mountain race called Rock the Ridge. It's in 6 weeks' time. Do you want to come and do it with us? And I was like, what have I got in 6 weeks' time? I've got nothing planned. I just come off Seville Marathon, and I was still feeling pretty good. And I was like, I want to dig my teeth into something. Okay, this sounds great. This sounds fun. Also, I'm doing the thing I really like to do, and I get to now meet people doing the same thing from a different part of the world. How cool is that? That was one of the real catalysts, because they all made content. I was making content, just kind of still starting out. I just started working with Lululemon, my main sponsor, in my sort of first year with them. And I was like, I'm being supported now and paid to go make content around the things I love. Okay, awesome. Let's go do that. Went and did that. And it was just such an eye-opening thing where it was a combination of the running, the content side of things, spending time with people who were also making content, different perspectives, different energies. And it was like, wow, especially Americans, they're very positive when it comes to content and people doing their own thing. I think it's not looked down upon the UK, but maybe an element of tall poppy syndrome. Whereas in America, like everyone, they're so much more supportive of people doing it. So I've spent a lot of time over there because everyone's, not only is the money is obviously a lot better in America, but it's also a case of people are so much more supportive, and the attitudes towards people getting after it, whatever it is they're doing, in whatever way they're doing it. It's not that no one has to conform to a standard way of doing things out there. And I think that's in a creative space like content, it means you can just go after it, and no one's going to think silly. Whenever I'm in New York, you see people walking on the street with tripods and cameras set up, and they're doing their thing, they're filming it, and no one cares. Because everyone's doing their own thing. You do that in maybe not London, but other parts of the country. People be like, oh, but that's a bit cringe, or that was a bit this. I'm fortunate enough that I don't really care, and it's worked. So I've also got proof being like, well, I do these things, and this has happened here. But I remember when I first started out being a bit like thinking it was weird filming myself running, but then I realized no one really cares, and actually I'm doing something I enjoy, and people are going to benefit from this. And what this random person who's running past me thinks of me doesn't actually matter, because they're going to forget me in 5 seconds anyway. So fine, it's all good. But that was, for me, that's where it really started to change. The penny dropped, and then all of a sudden I was like, hang on a minute. And I had a really good time. I had a difficult race because I didn't train for the elevation involved with it. I just said yes 6 weeks out, and the weekend before was one of my best mates' stag do's, and I was best man. I had to organise a stag do. It was the weekend just before this race, so I went into that race the first half of that next week, bit brain dead, and flying out to America, jet lagged, and then going to have some fun on the mountains. But it was also, those are the experiences that do shape you, the people you get to meet doing this, the connections you make. Running an ultra with people is such a beautiful way to get to know them. People open up about all sorts of things in their life that affect them, and really, really amazing to see. And not just people you're running it with, but people you meet on the way. The support is just incredible, and that was a real special weekend for me. And I remember that being like, this is really fun. Like, I really do enjoy doing this. It's hard, but I do enjoy doing this, and I get to meet some awesome people on the way doing it. I think whatever career you're in, the people you get to meet doing it are so important. You know, I've been in a previous life with work. I found that the people I had to spend a lot of time with and meet maybe I wasn't aligned with them in any sort of way. I wasn't inspired by them. I didn't particularly ever look at them and go, I want to be like you. Whereas with what I do now, the people I get to meet, the people I spend time with, I'm so grateful that I get to meet these people, some incredible athletes, content creators, people who look at things in a very unique way, people who've had incredible successes in different areas of life. And you get the opportunity to meet these people, and they can rub a bit of their magic off on you in a certain way, and vice versa, because they ask you things. All of a sudden I forget, like I've actually spent time building a platform, and I know a thing or two about content now and storytelling, and I was like, oh, I'm the one being asked questions about this, or they ask me questions about how do you run that far in that short space of time. And I go, oh god, like they're actually
I'm the expert here. Oh shit.
I'm the expert here. Like that no one told me that was going to happen at some point. I've always been in a very student mindset. Like I see someone who's been cool, I'm like, it'd be awesome to get to speak to that person and listen to their story and work, and just, how do they end up here? How do they do this? How do they figure this out? And then when you realize is as you develop and grow, people will come to you for that.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so, if you don't mind me asking, what were you doing job-wise before you were doing this full time?
I was in financial tech pretty much from when I was at uni outwards, and then I left my role with the payouts because I was one of the first people in the company, and then I ended up in consulting around that same area. But again, I think when I got the payout, I was a bit like, I now get to go do what I actually want to do, if that makes sense. And go into a few different areas, go into property, go into a few other areas of business that I wanted to get my money to work for me, right? And that was pretty cool, mid-20s, like, I was to go buy houses and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, interesting, like, this is great, but how do I actually want to spend my days? Like, you got to do something. You can't just, I wasn't wanting to walk around like I'm on some sort of retired investor age, 25, 26. And actually, you got to stay busy in this world. And I also didn't like trolloping around the north of England looking at houses all the time. Dealing with estate agents and trying to haggle, granted there are people who do that for a living, but for me it was more of a case of like, I liked finding broken up houses and making them something nice where someone can live. That I actually like that aspect to it, as opposed to trying to squeeze out every penny of a deal. And I think that was going from a very ruthless deal side of business. I actually found that from a personal perspective, I wanted to do something that I can see a tangible help to people. And I think that's why I was drawn to doing what I do now, because I meet people every day. Every time I go out and do something, someone stops me and has a conversation, and I think it's incredible. And I absolutely love it. And I love hearing people's stories. Whenever someone comes up to me, there's a girl I spoke to last night, I was out for dinner. She came over to say hi, and that she'd had a heart attack at age 18. And when she was recovering, she was watching my videos in the hospital about running and getting into it. She was a sprinter on a track, and she was very high intense work. And she had to get fitted with a pacemaker, and I was talking to her about this and how she was getting through it, because I was so amazed that, at such a young age going through such a traumatic thing, and where she went to get through that. And she was just telling me how amazing it was to see me after watching these videos, and it was just such a special moment. And I'm like, that for me is really such a privilege that someone says that to you, and it really touches me. And like doing something where people have benefited in whatever way they have done from something I've made is a special kind of return that you don't get the same when you do a deal that just makes money. And
yeah, you can't put a price tag on stuff like that, can you?
100%. So for me, that's the most important. That's why a lot of things we do. That's why I started the Run Club. It's not a business. It's a run club where people can come and get together. And we've grown to like nearly 15,000 members now. So that's the whole purpose. That is, I'm not doing it. I didn't do it to start a run club to be like, oh, let's sell some merch. We've never sold merch. It's just let's run for long distances together and make friends and connect over the matter of it. And that's, for me, special. And I don't want it to turn into this thing that's now a business or a venture. Yeah. I just like the fact that it's something that people can go to and have fun and enjoy themselves.
Man, I love that. And yeah, I was going to touch on the scrambled legs. I'll definitely get over to London for one of them one day. Or you do an out of class trip and come to Hong Kong and bring scrambled eggs to Hong Kong. Never say never.
We've got a scrambled eggs New York next weekend for the New York City Marathon. We're doing a partnership with Endorphins running over there.
Epic.
So that's the furthest we would have gone.
I love that. So I want to dive in a bit. I want to spend some time on your like actual content side, right? So, because I wanted to find out what you did before doing all of this, because you know, a lot of people listening will be maybe in their corporate jobs or doing something that they don't want to be doing, and they might not want to be full-time content creators, right? They might hate being in front of camera, but they might want to do something else. So can you tell us a bit, like, what was that shift like for you? I know you said you kind of had a buyout, so it was maybe a bit different from just like quitting your job and then making this big change, but there was still obviously a big change there for you. What was it like going from that jump? And did you immediately know that it was going to be content creation that you were going into?
No, not at all. You know what it was? I liked the fact that it was TikTok was just coming in, and TikTok was great because your friends don't see it. I posted for a year on TikTok running stuff, and I grew that to about 50K before I ever posted anything on my Instagram, because my Instagram was where my friends and people that knew me were on, and they knew a different version of me, and I was worried about what they would think. Ironically, Instagram is my main platform now, which is actually kind of crazy to think, but for that period though, I was really concerned of like, oh, what are people going to think of me? And then you realize it doesn't matter. So I didn't really have a plan in that sense there. I was 100 plus kilos, which I'm still around the same sort of weight, 6'4", getting towards ultra marathons. And I thought, I don't see anyone making content around this. And the sole purpose of me starting that was I didn't know anyone who ran ultra marathons. I didn't know anyone who would look like me, behave like me, but then also, you know, did these things there. So I thought, okay, well, the best way to find them, the people like that, like-minded people, would be to post about it and make content around it. And I started doing that, and it started to connect me to all sorts of people. And I also was away in the Middle East for a couple of months training, just like, you know, start of the year, wanted to get away somewhere sunny. And I started doing it over there as well, because I knew that it would be shown more to that audience than it would be to the UK audience. And I said, if I get to 5K followers on TikTok by the time I get back to London, I'll keep doing it. And I got to 5K followers in like a month, because just by posting every day. And I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And it was a real buzz of like going, okay, I quite like this. And it's one of those things. Okay, what are the videos you made this week? Great, let's look at them. How do they perform? You get all your analytics. What's the retention like on it? How could you make this better? And a lot of the time I'd occasionally make a video that did really well, and I didn't understand why that did well. And over time, in practice, it was the first. I look back at my first like 100 videos. Now I look at them like going, they were not good. At the time, I was like, oh my god, this is such a like. This is a piece of art.
That's the stage I'm at right now. That's the stage.
Like my very first video, I was doing voiceovers, and there's like 3-second sound gaps between finishing one sentence and the next sentence starting. And I don't know how an editor works. I'm editing everything in TikTok. I'm just chucking things together, and it's a case of going like, you've got to start somewhere, and you can't overthink it. Like I didn't think, you know, it wasn't like, oh, I need to learn how to edit first. I go, no, I'm pretty sure I can suss this out. I'll chuck things together. How do you know if an edit's good or not? Because people are going to watch it or not. It's, you know, and there's a case of you got to be dogged. You can't let the results you don't want get there. But at the same time, just relentless pursuit. Try. I thought it was fun. I liked it, and it was almost like gamification. Can I beat my high score from last week? Last week I made 4 videos, and each one did like 4,000 views. Okay, this week I want to try and get a video to 10,000 views. Can I do that? Okay, let's try this. What am I doing? And also not going. I always think with content, like I never ever go out my way to make a video. Like I'm never going to I don't set up a video. The video is what I'm up to, because I always say if you want to try and build a relationship with an audience, you have to take them on your journey that you're already on. If I'm going out to do, today we're doing this, it's like, yeah, but I wouldn't do that. So I'm not building a relationship. The character I'm putting on is building a relationship.
Yeah.
And that's not from a sense of trying to connect with people and trying to be raw with people. That's not actually the thing. So for me, it was like, well, what am I doing? Well, my life is relatively interesting. I get to live in cool places. I get to travel a lot, and I get to do all these things. And I train loads. Well, okay, why don't I just start sharing a bit more of that and a bit of perspective around those things? And also, I'm on a journey of becoming a pretty big dude who's going to start running ultra marathons. That's cool. I'd watch that.
That is interesting.
Let's take it on a journey. Cool. This is what I'm up to next. This is what I'm up to next here. And just take people on that journey. And towards, as that journey grows, you share that experience with people. And again, it's, taking people with you as you're doing these things, I think is an incredible way to do it. And then, they've seen you from day one saying, hey, I'm going to go do this thing, and then you take them on the journey. That's why with a challenge, I post about it so long before, because I'm going, hey, this is how I'm training for it. This is how I'm getting ready for it. These things I'm doing, from Madrid Marathon, Seville Marathon, Paris Half Marathon, Rock the Ridge Ultra, like all these races and things I've done. I don't just go one day, boom, at the start line, here we go. This is the process of me getting to the start line. Some would say more interesting than the race itself. The race is just the last one there. The prep work that goes into it, how I'm doing this, what I'm wearing for this, what I'm fueling for this, what I'm doing for this. It's nitty-gritty stuff that a lot of the time people have to figure this stuff out themselves. Okay, let me show you how I'm dealing with it, or I'm testing for this. Maybe this has worked well, maybe this run didn't go so well. The key perspectives I'm learning from it. I always say with social media, it's not what the person's doing that's interesting. It's what's their perspective that makes it interesting. What are you learning as a takeaway? And how do you share that learning? What's the medium? You speak to camera, you're doing as a voiceover. How are you sharing that? Are you working with other people? And they're like, what's the vibe with it? And that's interesting. If you show your own growth over a period of time, people then go, oh wow, I've seen this guy change. I've seen this guy improve. It's also a case of like, from a standpoint of, saying you're going to do something and doing it. People have seen you say you're going to do it, and then you go and do it there. Like I remember during the London Underground thing, so many people messaged me afterwards being like, you said you were going to do this like 6 months ago, and I've seen you prepare for it and train for it and do this, and then you've gone and done it. And it's like, that's so cool. I've seen the whole thing, and it's like, that was really interesting because I never knew that people would want to. I always thought, oh, let's show them the best thing about this thing. It's like, no, there's also, you can make content around anything, whatever is in your interest. It has to be running or fitness. And also, you may go, oh, well, there's other people making content around that. There's no one making content from your perspective. Your perspective is always unique. Everyone can make unique content because you are unique yourself. By the sheer fact that you're existing, going through life, no one has lived a life like you. You have a unique perspective on whatever it is, and there is a market for your own unique perspective. You just got to find a way to make that connect with people.
There's such good insights for anyone looking to create content, because I don't know if it's just me. I'm sure it's not me. I'm sure thousands and millions of people have struggled with this. When you set off and you say, right, I would like to start creating content. I'm interested in it. Mm-hmm. Immediately you think, shit, what am I going to create content on? You might be doing the most interesting thing, but you just don't know how to start. But then the more you do it, the more you develop, as you say, you go from thinking, I need to do some amazing things and film that and do content on that, versus actually, I just need to go about my everyday life. And then that's what people engage with. That's what people are interested in. And it's about the storytelling, the perspective, what you're taking from that. And it's like the behind the scenes stuff, right? That's what people are interested in. And
it's because if you're doing the day-to-day stuff, that's relatable because everyone does day-to-day stuff. If you do a big thing, a big challenge, that's not that relatable. It's inspiring, maybe, not relatable. But if you can do something that's inspiring, but you're relatable in the process of doing it because you're showing them behind the scenes of, this is what I'm struggling with, or this is the issues you're having here, like, people then just go, oh wow, like you're actually not a complete freak. You're a normal person like me who, does feel tired and does have the same worries and concerns I have, because we're all human. I think sometimes in social media it's a case of like almost dehumanizing ourselves, because again, you want to look cool, look a certain way. Reality is people don't actually care that much about that, and it's very forgettable. If you're relatable and you can connect with people, and people feel like they can understand you, or people feel like you'd be good to go for a beer with. Sorry if you don't drink, but like you would be. That's the best way to do it. Like, would I want to go for a pint with this person? Yes or no? They could be doing the most crazy things ever, but if they don't seem like the sort of person you'd want to go for a drink with after work, it's like, okay, well, cool. So yeah, I think that's it. It's not making everything look perfect. Like, I love the fact that Instagram, most social media turned to video, because I remember back in the days of photos on social media, you'd have these very well edited, looking sharp, perfect shots, and well dressed this and well dressed that, and there's no substance to it. It was just, I look nice in photos, and it was like, I think I look alright in photos. My hair's a bit shit, and like I always look tired and bags in my eyes, but I don't care. Like it's. I'd rather the most unique thing about us is our personalities, and what we can do with that and how we can connect with people. So I'll run with that instead. And the good thing about that is you can't get that, doesn't come across in videos. People with no personalities could build a social media platform when there was just photos only. Unfortunately, they've all been found out, and like you have to know how to communicate in a video, and the best way to do that is to be yourself, and you can't hide anymore in that sense. You just kind of have to be yourself with whatever it is you're doing, and there's always an audience for that. There's always an audience for you being yourself and being authentic, because people like authentic. People fuck with authentic massively, and I always try and keep it as real as possible in what I do and be authentic and not try and act like I'm anyone I'm not. Yes, I've done some pretty crazy things and pushed myself really hard, but I also like, smashing a few Guinnesses down the pub as well, and like watching the football, and I'm not in that regard, and I think that's where people can connect better with people on social media. And it's also where content creators can stop pretending like they're anything but someone who makes videos. I have an idea, I make a video around it and what I'm already doing. How can I make this idea better? What's something I've learned during this process here? And that's that. It just happens to be what I do. And, I work with brands that I like, and, I like to be careful who I work with, but also like to find a way that I can make people's lives a bit better with what I do in the way I do it. And that's it. It's not a case of, I'm not out here, there's people with a million times more important jobs than I do. It's just something that I found that I enjoy doing, and people seem to be benefiting from it. And hey, I'm going to keep doing that.
You're killing it. So we've got content creator, ultra runner, I'd say motivator. I put founder on the list, scrambled legs. I'm sure I've missed some stuff out there, but is there anything else in your future roadmap or in your plans that you would like to add to that list in the future?
That's a great question. I mean, I think under content, there's so many options to go down and so many ways to change and style up and areas like that. And I think as well, there's only so much you can do at a given time. And I think for you to grab onto that next Vine, you've got to let go of the previous Vine, as with previous career and this career. But I also think that I'm at a stage of life where I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I enjoy the platforms I'm building on, and I enjoy the impact it's having. Going further from there, definitely not podcaster. Whenever I get asked to do podcasts, the amount of work you guys have to do to pull these episodes together is phenomenal. I have a terrible attention span. And the reason I like working with myself is because I can control my diary. It's really hard when people miss up times or this and that. Like I trust myself to make it on time or something, but I don't really trust other people to. So that would infuriate me too much. And so it's more a case of that for me. I'm happy with those titles, and just runner. I think runner and being a good person.
Love that. Being a good person, very important one to add to the list. What's the next challenge, Jonny?
I'm running New York City Marathon next week. So
yeah, but what's the next challenge? That's not a challenge for you, man. Come on.
It's still a big deal, and it's my first world major. I've always run like small marathons just because.
Oh wow.
I didn't know. Okay, when I started running, I didn't know how marathons worked. I didn't come from a traditional running background. Some people talk about like the New York Marathon, London Marathon. I was like, okay, like would you just pay and get a space? They're like, no, you got to go into a ballot and you got to do this, and I'm like, you've lost me. I'm not. Wait, I pay the money and I don't even guarantee a space. I'm like, why don't I just go run a marathon where you pay a ticket and you can run it? Because not coming from that background, I was very much. It didn't have much meaning to me until I went to New York and watched the marathon. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And it's such a celebration of people and of their achievements and of life, and such a beautiful, beautiful thing to see and be a part of. So that is New York City Marathon. I'm running that next Sunday for fun. Lots of my friends are doing it and I have a great time. And then challenge-wise afterwards, I want to just do some faster speed work. Doing just zone 2 runs over this last 6 months has been, it takes its toll after a while. So I just want to get a bit faster and document that process of getting faster. I think that's interesting. People find running ultramarathons interesting, how you prepare for that, but also how do you train to increase your speed? How do you do this? What's the progress metric I'm trying to work towards? I always like to have something to aim at and to work towards. So I've got Austin Marathon in February in Texas. That one I'm going to go for a really good time at. So it's like, cool. So once New York's out of the way, we can start dialing in, start training for Austin. And, how can I see myself getting faster each week, documenting that process? How can I get from where I am now to where I need to get to? Same with all these things, and that's a part of it. It's what are the changes? What am I learning? What's different? What am I having to do on my training and outside of training to make this happen? And yeah, so that for me is a huge one. And then we've got there's a few things in the pipeline. A big multi-day challenge that I've organized won't be next year, will be the year after, because I just think it takes up so much of the time. And also the other key point about it is it has to mean something. If people can't connect with why you're doing a challenge, they won't connect to the challenge itself. Like you've got to You got to get people to understand why you're doing it and who you're doing it for, what it's about, how you're going about doing it. The actual challenge itself, whilst there are so many impressive ones, if someone's why is strong, that's enough more of a reason to do it. And until I find a why to do a certain challenge, I'm not just going to do a challenge for the sake of doing a challenge. I'll do a race. I'll do a marathon to Saabs. I'll do backyards, ultras, whatever it may be. But the why to do an actual challenge needs to be really, really strong. And so until I find that reason, and again, when you're in this space, the reasons come up and things happen in life, and your reasons do come up to do certain things, and you got to find something with meaning behind it and a reason why you want to put yourself through it, because it is not a pleasant experience to put yourself through it. You need that strong why, because if that why is not strong enough, you'll find yourself in a really unenjoyable spot.
You're in the race and in the prep.
Yes.
What's your dream?
This.
What, being on the podcast?
Not quite. No. Living a good life, that for me is everything. Waking up each day and enjoying what you do and having purpose around it is so, so important. I think when you're growing up, for me, I grew up in a place where money was tight, and it was, hey, you need to go out and make some money and do some way doing that. And actually that was so unfulfilling in a sense of I'd wake up every day having to do this thing I didn't necessarily want to do, but it was just good enough that would keep me in there. And then, whereas now it's a case of I wake up each day, I get to go and do this. Everything's reframed. I get to go look after my body. I get to make content I love. I get to put that together and connect with people on that. There's so many things that are around it I absolutely love. And it's also a case of I gave up something I was really good at and I was already successful at to go and do something I wasn't very good at. I had no history of success at, and I'd never ran an ultra marathon. I was like, it was a very strange thing that no one really understood in my life, but I was like, no, this is what I want to do. And a lot of my friends were like, what are you doing? I don't understand this, but I got it. And I've now lived through that process where I've now done the thing that I said I was going to do. And for me, that's everything. And I get to live a life that I really enjoy, I'm passionate about, I care about. I've got to, do this. And that for me is everything. And you can't really ask much for more other than to be happy in what you're doing and how you're doing it. And for me, that's everything.
Yeah, you're spot on. And how would you like to be remembered?
Kind. I think so important. I said before, people don't forget how you made them feel. And if you have the opportunity to make people feel great, make them feel great. Don't make people feel shitty. It's the world's a pretty nasty place all the time. There's a lot of bad things that happen and a lot of struggles we're going to go through anyway. And so if you can have impact on people and lift people up and make people's days a little bit better, then 100% you should go and do that, because it just says to the world who you are, and that matters.
Kindness is king. And finally, as we've said, the podcast is called Abnormal. It is for normal people who want to do abnormal things, just like yourself, Jonny. So what's the one piece of advice for someone looking to do something abnormal in their lives?
Oh, great question. One piece of advice, someone's looking to do something abnormal in their lives. As long as you understand why you're doing it, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
Fuck yeah. Love that. Absolutely love that. And that's something different from our other guests as well. Mate, that is spot on. You have been awesome. It's been a conversation I've been wanting to have for a long time, actually. As I said, I've been following your journey for quite some time now. You've been an inspiration for me personally, but also I know a lot of my inner friendship circle, a lot of my friends who are athletes or non-athletes are inspired by your content. So whatever you're doing, everything you're doing, we're all behind you. You're doing something damn right. And it's so, so cool to follow your journey, not just as an athlete, as a runner, but also all the stuff you do for mental health, raising awareness for that side of things as well. I really have a lot of admiration and respect for the stuff you do around that. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you again for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate it. I'm sure lots of people are going to hear your lessons from from athlete to lifestyle to motivation, discipline, and take a lot from it. So really appreciate your time. I know just how busy you are just from this one conversation. So thank you for squeezing out an hour for us. And it's been great getting to chat to you. I hope to speak to you plenty more in the future, and maybe get you out to Hong Kong for an ultra trail or something.
Absolutely, mate. We'll get that in there.
Good man. Well, thank you very much, and chat soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Abnormal Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to on right now, as it really goes a long way to growing the show. Thank you, and see you in the next one.